King 8 for Piver. And he will call. Setchi calls as well with Jack 7 in the small. Lifshitz can see a free flop with 10 deuce. And he will check his option. I think this is the first three-way post-flop action we've had today.
I think so too, in fact. Ooh.
8-8-7 trips for Piver. Setchi has paired his 7. How awesome to have 92% of the equity three ways. Gets checked around, and we get a jack on the turn. Setchi now with a better 2-pair, but still losing to Piver's trips. Lifshitz picks up a gut shot.
Yeah, it's an action turn.
Remember, this was unraised pre. Everyone checked the flop. It's been checked to Lifshitz on the turn, and the chip leader is betting. 225,000 into 400,000. Piver is going to raise. That's 875k total. And I'm guessing if Setchi calls here with a jack, Lifshitz will be tempted to call as well.
This raise just looks so strong, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, he could have some single heart hands, you know, that he might elect to play this way as opposed to just calling and kind of being and hoping that he hits to win the pot. Or just wants to put some pressure. It's the big blind betting. The big blind could have a hand as like Jack Deuce offsuit, for instance, or bet a 7 for some protection, or exactly the hand he has. Wow.
That is another raise.
Oh, wow. More than 2 million from Setchi. Well, that will get rid of Lifshitz. Action now back on Piver, who is a 95% favorite to win this pot with trip 8s.
Setchi's pretty much saying, if you had a flush draw, I think you would bet it on the turn. So I don't think you have a flush. I block jacks, I block 7s, so good luck with that.
You mean he would have bet the flush draw on the flop?
Yes, yes. So Piver would have bet the flush draw on the flop, trying to take an easy pot down. And this is not for value. He's not doing this because he thinks, oh, cool, I have a jack, I'm going to raise because top pair is good.
Yeah.
He's pretty much saying, like, I don't know exactly what you have, but I have very important cards that are very particular to this board.
I like that. I have very important cards.
Piver calls.
Holy crap. How have I not seen this hand before? Already on the turn. This is amazing. What is happening? Okay. Let's first talk about Tomas Paiva and his plays so far, because we think there might be some mistakes being made here. Starting with pre-flop, limping the king 8. 60 blinds is the effective stack. He's 60 blinds between him and the blinds. It's not like one of those, there's an 18 blind stack, I don't want to shove on me things. It feels like these guys are good. We should just raise with king 8, right?
I agree. I mean, I think if we're going to play the hand at all, which I think we should just raise it. If you're going to fold, I'd rather fold than limp it personally, because these guys are good. These are both two very accomplished players. Paiva, by the way, has no results effectively, like very, very few results comparatively, and is more of an amateur, we think. And also his actions seem to point
Yeah.
to that as well. So that's just another reason to like, I don't want to play a lot of hands deep stacked against these guys with mediocre holdings if I don't have to, when I give them a free shot at everything. You know, I'm giving a free look at the board here, like either raise or fold.
Well, here we are. This is the board.
Yeah.
Great board.
Great board.
Look at that flop. Hey, maybe this will all work out.
yeah,
You
it's
know?
looking good.
But he checks back after the 2 checks.
Why?
We can talk about Sechi's check, but it's not really worth it. It's fine. Check or bet, whatever. Both are fine.
Comparatively.
Yeah. But Paiva checking back here. This is a very wet board and we have trips. I guess we're just afraid of chasing away our customer, but that's not a good enough reason. Like, we should bet this board. It's too wet.
Let's think about all the value we're going to lose if a heart comes on the turn, by the way, one does. If a straightening card comes on the turn, by the way, one does. Turns out there's going to be a lot of chips that are going to go in. But now it's going to be hard on us, too. We see what happens on the turn, right? Like, often if we check here and one of those cards comes, either our opponents pick up significant equity, take the lead against us, or just fold anyway, and because we can't get value anymore from like a 7.
Right.
Why wouldn't we bet now to try and get value? By the way, not just from a 7, not just from all these draws, but the Dream, which is a worse 8, which both these players can absolutely have. We limped on the button. They're teaming with 8s. They have pretty much almost all the 8s. The small blind has a few less 8s, right? But like the bad 8s are out there. We can win a huge pot.
Yeah.
We have to bet.
We have to, but we don't. We check. We don't like that.
No.
Maybe now it's time to flatten the curve, as they like to say. You know, it's like the case numbers keep going up in Paiva land, and it's like maybe on the turn we
Yeah.
can flatten the curve and fix the problem.
Maybe.
I don't think we did it.
Well, let's take a look.
All right, so Sechi checks again.
Yes.
You could make arguments about that. If you want to hear more about that, check out our podcast. Live shit's betting makes perfect sense. The other guys don't have to have anything. He has a gut shot to go along with an I can have anything situation in the big blind, right? Might as well take a shot.
Yeah, I like the bet.
Okay. Paiva raising might be my least favorite play in the hand. I really don't like Paiva raising here. I understand we're trying to make up for missed value on the flop, right? But we have to look at the board and see that a turn card came, and that is one of the 3 or 4 worst turn cards in the deck for our hand.
Agreed.
Bar none. So this is a problem. Why are we raising into the worst turn card on the deck?
Another thing to
in
keep
the
in
deck.
mind too is it's one of the reasons why it's the worst turn card, or one of the worst, is that I would assume that we are almost always betting our flush and straight draws as Paiva.
Yeah.
So 9-10, we're probably betting on that flop.
Right.
We have hearts, we're probably betting. You know who's less likely to be betting? The other 2 guys who might be check raising that.
Right.
But we're going to bet that one check to almost always. So we have less made hands now, or less super strong hands than our opponents.
Yeah.
Now we have a very strong hand, admittedly, but there's a bet in front of us. Straights and flushes absolutely can be out there for live shits who may have been check raising or check calling the flop, and then he just,
By the
we
way,
just
and
checked it
full
back.
houses.
Yeah, and full. That's fair. This seems like such a straightforward call. Where
Yeah.
then if we get to control the size of the pot, if we're behind and there's a bet on the river, we're probably going to call unless the board gets really funky with another heart. Like the 10 of hearts is obviously a terrible card, but maybe any heart. Fine, we can fold. Otherwise, we can call and either bluff catch or lose a medium-sized pot. Instead of now we're by raising. Okay, yeah, we're charging equity and all these things, but like we're just going to blow a lot of worse hands out of the water.
We might only be getting called by better hands.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. The naked ace of hearts might call us.
Maybe.
But, that the naked ace of hearts in theory is in the big blind who could have raised with a lot of aces
Right.
and chose not to. I don't know how many naked ace of hearts are even out there. This feels like a clear call.
Right.
An easy call. But the raise feels like, whoa, you're getting really fancy or something.
And I said we might be only getting called by better hands. We don't know because we don't get called.
There are no calls.
We
by
get
the other
raised.
players.
All right, this play is cool.
Yeah.
By Sechi.
So cool.
This is really cool. It accomplishes a lot of things. One thing it accomplishes, well, first of all, let's talk about his hand. He has Jack 7. This is the perfect blockers. We block all the full houses, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty great. We're folding out almost all of Live Shit's hands. Like, with these blockers, we don't have to worry about Live Shits anymore that much. Like, he has very few hands that can continue here, having only put in 225 when we make it 2.125 million.
I mean, on the podcast, we talked about could Live Shits continue with a flush here? And we're like, nope, we don't
Yeah.
think he can. We think he's just going to fold the flush. So, yeah, that's amazing. And, of course, it's incredibly hard for him to have full houses because, as you said, we block all the full houses.
Right. So he folds,
Yeah.
obviously. Paiva can call with maybe flushes a little bit more easily than Lifshitz.
Yes.
But he also, checked back the flop, so we don't put him on that many of those things. We
No
probably
way.
think that Paiva has a lot of naked ace of hearts as Sechi.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes the most sense for
Right.
sure. Now, it makes a little bit less sense when Paiva doesn't fold here. He decides to still call. Now he's probably got some other hands too besides just the naked ace of hearts. You got to figure sometimes he's going to fold the naked ace of hearts here, right?
Yeah, but should he have called? Let's talk about that for
Okay.
a second. Should Paiva have called now that it's back to him?
I mean, if we think Sechi is really cray, then we could decide to call here. But mostly, I would just want to fold because what are we rooting for exactly besides an 8 or a king on the river? What can we really call?
Right. I mean, like
big
a
bet on
seven,
the
a
river
seven
with?
pairing might not be enough. I mean, Sechi has Jack 8 in his range for sure.
We're obviously going to call it the 7 pairs. We're going to call it the jack. I think we're going to call it the jack pairs also for sure.
Probably, yeah.
We're going to call and lose, by the way,
Yeah.
but we're going to call. But this is just like a sort of a nightmare spot because if we call here, we have to call, I think, on a lot of bricky rivers because otherwise we're going to lose on almost every river, right? Because if a bad card comes like a heart, we're probably going to fold.
Yep.
If a brick card comes and we fold anyway, well, we'd be losing to all the good hands anyway.
Right.
But we're also going to then get bluffed by all like the naked ace of hearts.
I think we should just fold now. I
Yeah.
know it
I
sucks.
agree.
We were trying to make up for missed value, and guess what? It didn't work out very well. This is a bad card. A bad event happened. We have to think that Sechi is this super sick guy who has a ton of 3 bets on the turn with 5 left and $1 million up top to think that we could be okay here. It turns out that Sechi has the perfect hand, and he might literally only be doing it with Jack 7. This might be the only hand that
Yeah.
he's doing this as a bluff with.
Right, I agree.
So I think we should just fold.
Yeah.
Even though we have 95% equity here, I know that. I see that. This is a fold in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's easiest played as a fold for sure. If we think he's truly insane, we could decide to call, but then we're going to have to be really clear about what we're doing on the river.
Well, Nitrogen Sports has clear rivers everywhere. Clear rivers of Bitcoin going straight into your Bitcoin wallet because, you get to play the monthly Poker Guys tournament. You got to use the link in our pinned tweet to sign up for that tournament. There's a huge overlay. Get yourself some of those tasty, crystal clear Bitcoin rivers.
So diving into the land of the water of Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. That's what people say.
8.
The river is an ace.
Because it's very hard for him to have jacks from the small blind just completing, and he could have some 7s, but there's a chance he would raise that also pre-flop since he has a bigger stack than Paiva.
And how great is it being in position here?
Yeah. If he pulls this trigger, I'm gonna go outside and hug him.
Because he's about to lose a massive pot.
No, because this would be one of the most technical bluffs pulled off in the entire tournament. Oh God, I love this. This man is such a just what a gangster.
Sechi shoves on Paiva. It's all into call. Yes, he has the best hand.
He might be a gangster, but I think he's going to end up like Sonny at the toll booth.
It's not an easy call, though, right?
No. I mean, you have trips on a board where there's a straight possible. Somebody could easily have a better full house. Easily could have a full house. They could have a flush. And on top of that, their range is incredibly wide. They have an incredibly big range of hands because they're in the small blind and they only had to pay 1/2 a blind to see the flop.
Is a flush going to play it like this?
Could. I would think the most likely scenario here for sure is a full house. You're right in that, if he has king 10 of hearts, wouldn't he really just also raise pre-flop? Like ace something of hearts would also just made it 5 big blinds pre-flop.
So like the most likely full house in the big blind. Oh my goodness.
This?
Lex, you were right, buddy. Holy.
9-7 with a heart.
He shows
Oh, man.
the
Yeah.
bluff, and Paiva will be sick to his stomach.
Well, that is how you engineer 4.875 million chip pot for yourself if you're Sechi there.
Yeah.
That's a very impressive overall showing for Mr. Secchi.
What a hand.
Yeah. All right. Should he have done it on the river once called on the turn? Was this a good idea?
I think it was a good idea specifically because the ace came. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to shove if a bricky card comes, a true bricky card. The ace is not an entire brick, though. It's a brick from Secchi's range, for
Yeah.
Secchi's range, but it's not at all a brick for Paiva's range, right?
Right.
If Paiva can have the ace of hearts here, now Secchi's losing. He went from winning to losing. So, but that's a hand that should absolutely fold to this shove. As we can see, other hands are probably going to fold as well. So I like it, first of all, just to attack that. The only things we should be losing to now are hands that are basically snap calls.
Yeah, full houses that are slow playing
Yeah.
or quads. You know,
Yeah,
those
like
types of
fine.
hands.
Those hands, fine, are going to call us, and that sucks. And that's the reason not to make this play if we think like, oh god, he only has full houses.
But we still
now.
have those same blockers, right? And the ace doesn't factor into full houses, or at least it shouldn't. It turns out it
Well-
probably would because it looks like Paiva could have ace-8 in his range, considering that he has king-8.
That's true, and also maybe he can have ace-ace with the ace of hearts.
Maybe.
But those are unlikely holdings.
Yeah.
You assume he's going to bet those a lot on the flop or pre-flop. I don't think we should worry too much about that. I think we should be attacking the naked ace of hearts and maybe some other made hands that somehow slow played the flop.
Right. I mean, what do you do if you have a flush or a straight? If you're Paiva, I mean, you might just have to fold. This is such an incredibly strong play by Secchi.
I mean, it seems really, really hard. The ace coming makes you also think like, would he bluff if he had the naked ace of hearts? Maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he would just give up or check, thinking like maybe an ace is good sometimes. You know, it's hard for it to be good, but maybe.
So speaking about Paiva having straights and flushes, let's talk about what he should be calling with here,
Yeah.
because we did get here as Paiva.
Somehow.
So we have to call with some things, right?
Yes.
And we have some snap calls in our range,
course.
which are, you know, when you add in the subjective factors of how the hand has been played, very few combos of full houses, like 7-8, Jack-8, Ace-8, I guess. Are,
Yeah.
And like some 7-7, that type of hand, maybe some Jack-Jack.
Maybe some ace-ace.
That might add up to like 5 total combos as played, maybe less.
Right.
So that's not that many hands that we have there that are easy snap calls. What's the next thing we call with? Because we mentioned straights and flushes. Those are by rank better than an 8. But it became clear to us on our podcast that those would be worse to call with than an 8.
Right, because what's going on is Secchi is not repping a flush here. When he 3-bets the turn and shoves the river, he's repping full houses.
Right.
And in fact, we can see that's what his blockers are for, right? So he's thinking about that too.
If at worst he had the nut flush, maybe that's the worst hand he ever shows up with.
Yeah.
That doesn't change the fact that calling with flushes and straights is still bad.
Right.
We still lose to flushes and straights.
Like, do we really think Secchi's doing this with a straight? I
Right.
don't. Do we really think he's doing it with medium flushes? I don't think he's shoving the river with a medium
no,
flush.
but we think he's doing it with a full house, right?
Absolutely.
What do we block when we have an 8?
We block some full
We
houses.
block all of the full houses that Secchi really has in his range. He doesn't have too many pocket pair full houses because he limped pre-flop.
Yeah, what do we block when we have a straight? Nothing. Now, maybe we have a few flushes that also block some full houses that are also like a pair and a flush.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a hand we could consider calling with because that's got some good blockers too. But the 8 feels like the king of the blockers.
Well, that would have to be ace-8 with the ace of hearts because the other ones are all hearts.
Oh, that's not as good then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. That's right. They are. They're all hearts. Anyway, so that's not great. The 8 is like the blocker supreme, then,
Right.
to all this stuff. And so since we called the turn, if we called the turn believing that our opponent has some bluffs, well, our opponent should still have some bluffs.
Right.
we can
And
call.
this might be the best hand that we can have. It would be slightly better to have the king of hearts in our hand just in
Yes.
case.
Yeah.
Just in case. But it's like so marginal because it's so unlikely that Secchi has a flush at this point.
It really feels pretty unlikely.
But having a king or a queen is really important with the 8 because those cards play in case Secchi is getting super sick and turning an 8 into a bluff.
Right, which is not completely impossible on that board on the turn.
Right.
Right. We saw him do it with blockers. The 8 is another blocker. and a
Right.
pretty
It's
key
less
one.
likely because it's got a lot more value, but
Yeah.
it's still possible. So it's really important to have the king 8. So we have, after full houses, we believe the best hand to call with.
That
It's
is
better than a flush. It's better than a straight.
Yeah, the non-king of hearts 8. That's the second. It's basically the king of hearts 8 is the best hand.
Yeah.
And after that, it's these 8s. We talked about it on the podcast, and we both really agreed that it's better than even any 8 with any other heart.
Right.
We think we'd rather have the king that plays.
And we don't care about straight blockers or anything because
Oh my
Secchi's
God.
not shoving a straight.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
So, I mean, I'm not saying I could have figured this out in Paiva's seat if vaulted into a seat on the river and I had to make a decision there. I probably end up folding too.
Yeah.
But it turns out this is probably distribution-wise with the blocker situation probably has to be a call.
I agree. So we don't like any of Paiva's decisions at any point in the hand.
I
basically.
guess sometimes you just can't get it right.
Yeah. Another thing that's important with this too is, which I'm sure Sechi is aware of, is Paiva with his lack of results. This shove is the ultimate pressure to put on him.
Yeah.
Where you can probably fold out straights and flushes, even if they were there at least a lot of the time. What an amazing hand. This is one of my favorite hands I think we've ever done.
Super cool.
I love this play by Sechi. Do you guys agree? Do you think this is the right play at the right time by Sechi, or did he just get lucky? What do you think about Paiva's decision to call turn and then fold river? Do you think that's okay, or do you think he should be more consistent, basically go call, or just fold the turn? We actually didn't like most of Paiva's decisions. We think could have made different ones. Do you agree with that? Do you think there are other things could be done? Let us know in the comments.
Also, check out our podcast. That's where we come up with all of our conclusions for these hands. There's also 2 podcasts a week versus the 1 video a week. That means double the content. It's very exciting. It's very fun. Get in there. Get the Breakdown Poker Podcast with the Poker Guys.